everybody, welcome back. Blitz and Cocktails. We're having another episode here. Today's guest is my guy. Everybody knows him. The mayor of Houston and Third Ward. Dennis Glenn. He's in studio with us today. How you doing, man? What's going on with you?
Doing just fine, my brother. Doing great, man. Good to be here. Chop it up a little bit.
I know that's right. What we're trying to do today is, before we start talking about sports issues, what I want to do today is I want to give my condolences out to the University of the Houston's family. They lost three past athletes, former athletes, in a bad car accident this past weekend, Saturday morning. So I wanted to give my condolences to DJ Hayden and a couple of other University of Houston players. Very tragic incident that took place.
Yes, it was.
I wanted to, make sure that everybody, was aware that he was a former U of H player, and he was also a former, Raider, Oakland Raider, Los Angeles Raider, Las Vegas Raider, but he was an all-around good cat, from here in Houston. I just want to, pass that on, to everybody, that didn't know, that knew that DJ Hayden got into a serious car accident this past weekend. Welcome back to the set. Welcome to the set, Dennis. What I want to discuss today with you, since you're, knowledgeable about, different sports activities that go on here in the Houston area, I wanted to talk to you about some of the issues that's, affecting HISD. Like what took place this weekend, I still, have problems with trying to understand how is it that HISD, like we just discussed here a minute ago, HISD is one of the biggest,
largest school district in the state of Texas.
In the state of Texas. How is it that for the last 5 to 6 years, in the first round of the playoffs, all the HISD schools always get knocked out? What's happening here?
What you see that's going on right now is a collective, I wouldn't say plan, but it is a plan. That what you've done is you've taken all the kids out of the suburbans, out of the neighborhoods, and put them in suburbia schools now. If you look at, even if you watch the sports at nighttime, the schools that they talk about, sports is Atascocita, Willis, Texas, which is on the other side of Conroe.
Right.
Conroe, all the schools that are on the Oscars, but you rarely hear them mention schools like Yates. Jones is no longer around, but Madison. Now they will mention Lamar.
Yeah, they did mention Lamar. I think they mentioned that Lamar actually won this past weekend.
And Lamar is playing with mostly kids that are from the Third Ward. They're from South Union. They're from all over. But they're being bussed in to make their team better.
When did this start taking effect? Because when I came through high school, the dominant schools here in HISD, as far as Houston's football went, as far as basketball was the Yates and Madison, Sterling every now and then, every other year.
Wheatley, Cashmere,
So
Washington.
What took place? Why is this so evident now that the HISD schools aren't excelling past the first rounds anymore?
What I've seen is a relocation of our people within those communities that surround these schools. Most of the time, if you look at the schools and where they are, if you remove homes, apartments, tear down, it removes families. The more families you remove, the more the school goes down, because they don't have the kids to field teams.
Really?
Yeah.
So I was talking to Quentin the last time that he was here, Quentin Smith, and he made a comment about the fact that as far as feeder schools like Cullen and Ryan, they're not actually feeding into Yates anymore. They're feeding to schools like either Madison or Lamar now.
Yep.
Why? What happened with the demise of? I know Cullen's still around, but Ryan is not around anymore.
Ryan is still around, but it's Baylor College of Medicine.
Yes, Baylor College of Medicine.
Yeah, and what that is that's a specialized program, but the kids who live in that neighborhood are not allowed to go to that school.
Why?
Because that's not what they want. It's just like Lockhart. It's just like the Energy School, which sits in the Third Ward, which is a high school, but none of the kids who live in the neighborhood attend that school. Those kids are bussed in. If you go there at 7:30 in the morning, you're going to see 10, 15 buses because they're bringing them in. That program is also financed with the University of Houston.
Right. So the kids that are being brought in now, they're being brought in from neighborhoods, suburbia.
Mm-hmm. All around the city of Houston.
Galena Park,
They come from all
Katie's and all. They're coming into the city now.
Right, and that program would be so beneficial to our kids.
Right.
But they don't believe that our kids are intelligent enough to take those classes. But yet and still, they're in our neighborhoods.
Right.
So you can't judge a book by its cover. Just because a kid lives in a neighborhood, that doesn't mean he's not capable of learning.
So basically what they're doing now is they're basically just taking our tradition away from us altogether.
Oh, most definitely. I mean, if you look, let's take Yates, for instance. In 1981, you had an enrollment of 3,900 students. 60% of those students came from north of downtown. The other 30, 40 came from north of Yates. Mm-hmm. So when you eliminate apartments like the Rosewood apartments, you start eliminating housing. If you look at all the empty lots there in Third Ward now, if you look at the apartment complexes that were removed between the churches, University of Houston, Texas Southern, they removed over 3,000 units. If you remove 3,000 units out of an area, what do you do to the schools in that area? You ask why we don't have feeder schools anymore? We don't have enough kids to feed
into those schools
anymore. We have 3 elementary schools in all of Third Ward. And one of them, which is McGregor, you got to be able to qualify to get into that one. But you have Lockhart Turner, which they combine 2 schools together, and you have Blackshear.
And Lockhart was what? Lockhart is on what? Sophomore?
Yeah, Lockhart is where the new energy school is.
The new energy school.
Yeah.
And that used to feed in the.
That fed into Ryan and fed into Color.
Right. And they just totally
they're gone.
Wow. Once you start hearing those numbers and you start, looking at, the landscape of those areas, so like you said in 81, it was 3,900 students at, Yates. What is it now?
About 700.
700.
Mm-hmm.
That's a mass exodus quickly.
That's a mass exodus of the neighborhood itself. If you look at the neighborhood itself, that's where your problem comes. When if you look at Will Avenue, when they built the new church, new parking lot, it took 3 streets with an average of 17 houses on each one of those streets, on each side of the street. So what do? You buy these people out and you push them out. You tear the houses down and you make a parking lot.
Wow.
Look at Holman Street. Holman Street owns 17 lots in Third Ward around that church. And they're all empty. U of H came in and built an apartment complex on Reeve Street. Never in my wildest dream would I have thought they would build a 3-story dormitory on Reeve Street.
On Reeve Street, yeah.
Yeah. Because at first, they felt that those people were afraid of us. Mm-hmm. But what they learned is the more of them they put in our neighborhood, the more powerful they become.
Yeah, so the tradition that we grew up with, now that you see these kids, they don't even understand, what it meant to put on that crimson and gold, back then when we were, coming through school, back in, like you said, the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
Putting on that crimson and gold back in the 80s was something. That was
my grandfather's house. I could throw a rock from that house and hit the school. So from the age of 7, 8 years of age, Yates was my playground. Mm-hmm. I know, my mother went to Yates, my father went to Yates.
Tradition.
All my aunts went to Yates. Yeah. All my uncles went to Yates. My grandmother is a graduate of Yates.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So what we were taught was pride. Mm-hmm. The pride in wearing those colors.
Right.
But these kids they're not taught pride. You know why? Because they're being educated by a cell phone.
Cell phone and social media. Mm-hmm. Cell phone and social media.
Yes, sir.
So I know that you were talking about, pride and tradition and stuff like this. one of the things that I used to remember about the pride and tradition of Yates used to be the rivalries that we had, with different schools.
Yeah, Yates and Wheatley.
Yates and Wheatley, Yates and Booker T.
Booker T.
And then as the '80s, progressed, it started becoming the Madisons and the Sterlings.
Because they became
products of Third Ward.
Yeah,
products of Third Ward and South Park. They all went to the Madisons and they went to the Willow Ridges. Yeah. Talk to me about the rivalries, because I was talking to a friend of mine last week, and she graduated from Smiley. Mm-hmm. But I know Yates used to have a rivalry with Smiley back then, back in the 70s.
We 80s. Really, Smiley was a white school.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
See?
So in the 70s, no, we didn't have no rivalry with Smiley.
Really?
White schools didn't play black schools back in the day. White schools didn't play black schools until like the early, maybe 1970.
So the rivalries
always right, because they were traditional. Because you had families. One side of the family went to Wheaton, one side of the family went to Yates.
Right.
One side of the family went to Booker T. Washington. So those were the rivalries. When you start talking about rivalries, mm-hmm. Wheatley was always our homecoming game.
You know what? And that was one of the things. See, I didn't grow up in Third Ward. I grew up in South Park.
Right.
So I went to school, in elementary school. I went to Garden Villas, and then I went to Hartman.
Right.
So I really didn't found out anything about Yates and the rivalries and the tradition until I went to Yates.
Right.
And one of the things.
But you were taught when you got there.
I was taught when I got there, and one of the things that I did see that I noticed missing, especially like during this time of the year, was the Turkey Day Classic. What was the original Turkey?
The original Turkey Day Classic ended in doing what we call. It was doing like when we went from segregation.
Uh-huh.
So segregation put an end to the Turkey Day Classic because the Turkey Day Classic was always played on Thanksgiving Day.
Right.
And people were dressed up.
Right, I remember that.
I
remember that. Well, the game that I went to that day, it was former Yates players and former Wheatley players. They came to Robinson Stadium, and that was the Turkey Day Classic. So you saying, I know it changed from then because, what they tried to, play now was the active schools, Yates and Wheatley playing. But back in the day when I was coming through the 80s and stuff like that, I think they might have had like the last one, like the year we went to state in '85.
Well, that was the very first one.
Okay.
That was the very first one we did where we collaborated with Wheatley.
Right.
Al was the representative for Wheatley.
Mm-hmm.
And, we worked together to put that together. They eliminated the Turkey Day Classic, the original one, because of the way the schedules are made. See, it used to be Yates and play but 8 games.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So when the school district started to expand, what it did is it changed the time that games were played.
Mm-hmm.
Because you got more games being played, so it surpasses Thanksgiving. That's the reason why you start the playoffs now during Thanksgiving Day.
Well, they start on the beginning of November, mm-hmm. and then they run it all the way down to December.
Well, back in the day, that was Yates' homecoming.
The last game of the season. Used to be the Turkey Day Classic.
Right. And only one team from the district went on to advance.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so now it's 3 teams that advance.
Right.
Yeah.
And see, I'm like I said before, it's a lot of tradition right there in the Third Ward area that, people like myself who, wasn't, Third Ward born.
Right.
Who didn't know these type of, things took place. Like I said, that one particular time that I did come to the Turkey Day Classic, I was like, whoa, because my parents didn't go to Yates. My mother graduated from Worthing.
Okay.
So they didn't have that.
But do you know that during that time, that people from Jones, Sturgeon, Worthing, everybody came to that game
mm-hmm.
because they have fixed their dinners the night before.
Right.
They come to the game.
Right.
They cheer on.
Right.
And back home for your Thanksgiving dinner.
That was it was like a big black celebration.
It was a huge celebration for blacks in Houston.
Why can't we do that now? I mean, what would be the politics? And
have you ever heard of divide and conquer?
Yeah.
Segregation divided us.
Really?
It really
that bad?
Yeah.
40 years later, we're still
separated. Because what you did is when you brought in, and matter of fact, I was a part of that busing stuff in 1967. I was sent to Will Rogers Elementary School, 4 black boys, 4 black girls, in a school of 650 people. And they experimented with us. They wanted to see if we could be academically able to keep up with their children.
Right.
And what they did is they kept us in a program that followed us from elementary school to junior high school, which they made me go to Pershing. And I was going to be at Lamar, but because Yates had the magnet program, the only way I can go to Yates is if I be in the magnet program, but my house is right down the street.
So you automatically supposed to be zoned there anyway then?
Yes, sir. But the way they had it set up, they filled your M&M transfers out for you to go to those schools.
Really?
Yeah. Because what they did is they came into the neighborhoods and they took the best athletes and they sent us to white schools.
Best athletes. Okay. Now you just segue me into something else where we're talking about best athletes. So this is been one of my questions, since, I've started trying to, find out more about Yates history and Yates tradition. It was known, or it still is known to this day, that, I guess, Yates was nominated or named the team of the decade in the 80s. Okay. My question is, from all those teams from 80 to like 89, why didn't we have
more championships?
Besides that, more players go to the NFL. If Booker, was that, that coach that everybody, reveled about. Because we had some. But with all of those great teams, you would think great players would develop, go to college, and then go into the league.
What do you think the average high school player out of a team of 76 kids chances of making it to the, first of all, playing Division I football, Division II football, and then thirdly, being able to go to the NFL?
Maybe 1 or 2.
Okay.
Maybe
so,
1 or 2. So
the biggest problem with black athletes during that time is that a lot of schools didn't prepare our kids for the SATs. The only, it's bad to say, but we had a lot of counselors back in the day. They were just eating a paycheck.
A lot of coaches too.
Yeah.
A lot of coaches too. I mean,
coaches steered you to where they wanted you to go on how much somebody will put in their pockets.
That's a taboo conversation. That's a taboo conversation. But I mean, this is the Blitz with cocktails, and this is what we do. We sports trash talk here. So I mean, if that's what we're gonna do, then let's do it. Okay.
Because it's real. I mean, you can't. NIL is putting a sting on college and high school.
Right.
Because now you can pay them.
You can pay them to go wherever.
So guess what? Coaches ain't gonna make no money.
No. But that's what they were doing back in the day, because it was no way possible that a lot of the athletes that came through Yates at the particular time ended up at the A&Is and ended up at the Sam Houstons and ended up at the TSUs. Most of those guys, I thought, it's like, especially my year, I thought at least, 5 or 6 of us, which, in actuality, that class, we did have like 5 or 6 go to Division I, but we should have had a lot more through the course of the 80s.
But playing Division I football, being recruited to play Division I football, you got to have that
We had some
You did.
We had some
But they had But guess what they didn't have?
The grades. Yeah. Yeah, and I mean that's hard to that's hard to shake, but I do remember once the football season was done, then they were done, and I have to be honest. I mean like personally myself, I mean a lot of those coaches that were at Yates at that particular time, they really didn't prepare me for the next level of Division I football. All they did was they prepared me for Sterling, they prepared me for Madison. And then they prepared me, for the homecoming game, and then maybe 1 or 2 playoffs. But as far as able to transition now and going and dealing with, Caucasians,
right,
at different schools, Wasn't ready for it. It was like, I went and played at the University of Wyoming, and that was like taking Third Ward to Mayberry. They were not ready for that at all, and I wasn't ready for it either.
Well, I mean, the first time I took a group of students up to A&M, and the look on their faces were like, wow,
Yeah.
this is university.
Yeah.
Yeah. Roper was ready.
How? I mean, coming from Yates, I mean,
Just the mentality.
the mentality.
The mentality.
Okay.
To get kicked off your high school football team by your head coach because you get the quarterback so hard, don't you think that impresses college coaches?
Was that him or Gene? I thought that was Gene.
That was John.
That was John Roper.
Yeah. Way to go to TSU and borrow uniforms from over there.
That's right.
Put on,
That's right. Because Booker didn't want him practicing and putting on their uniform
That's
anymore.
right.
That's right.
You can only wear uniform.
You are sure right.
Yeah.
You are sure right about that. Yeah, he did.
He literally walked off the field with just his drawers on.
He actually did that.
Yeah.
And I mean, you have somebody that can give that play-by-play that he actually hit somebody that hard.
Oh.
Okay,
But
so
it was Coach Wanda though.
okay, so
Coach Wanda said, you know what? He play quarterback, right?
Mhm.
He gonna get hit in the game, baby. Hit him. Let me see if he tough.
right. Okay, so since we talking about urban legends, every urban legend stories that happened, when we was at Yates. So we're in San Antonio. Was that? Yeah, we're in San Antonio, and I think we were playing with who we playing? Converse Justin. Was it Converse Justin.
Justin.
When Eugene Sauls told Booker, he told Bob Allen.
Right.
I'm just asking. I'm setting up the story, but he told Bob Allen that Booker threw the game when we was in Converse Justin, when we lost Converse Justin. Taboo. This is the trash talk. I want to know. I heard the story, and then this is when we was in San Antonio when we lost to Chris Pryor and Converse Justin.
I say that they didn't play their game.
Yates.
Yeah. The difference between Charles Price, Johnny Bailey, Gary Williams, that core group of that state championship team,
Mm-hmm.
they didn't give a damn about what Coach Booker said. See, Coach Booker was a figure large.
True.
And you knew if you talked back to him and you didn't do what he said, he was gonna yank you out the game.
Yeah.
But how could you yank? You couldn't yank a Johnny Bailey at the game. You couldn't yank a Charles Price at the game.
No, you couldn't. No, you couldn't. Okay, so that brings me to another point. Then, even though they won state,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm asking you,
And the record is, and they won state on a record that still ain't broken.
it's not gonna be broken.
Yeah.
But my question is, even though they won state, that '85 team won the state championship.
Right.
Okay. I heard that team with Ledette and Jeffrey Fields was better. Is that debatable? Is that accurate? What? This is what I heard. I know they had Jeffrey Fields, they had Milton O'Neill, they had Thomas Ledette.
Yeah.
I heard that '81 team was better than the '85 team. So if they played right, back then, if they would have lined it up in the back of Yates.
Well, see, I was gone, but that team I played with in 81.
Mm-hmm.
That's the actual 82 team.
Okay.
And would I say that they? Yeah. You hate Deion Sanders. He needs some dogs.
Mm-hmm.
He had some dogs.
Really?
But that wasn't the first year they had dogs. We've had dogs at Yates since the 60s.
So again, you kind of making my point then. My deal is, like I said before, why didn't we have, despite what all of that grades and stuff like that, I still believe, that we still should have had a lot more players go to the NFL than we did.
I'll put it like this here. If we had the social media like we have now, back then, you would have more players. But those kids, our games were not watched by everybody. That was a Third Ward, Sunnyside, South Park thing.
Mm-hmm. Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah. I'm kind of still kind of stuck on that because like I said, through the course of the '80s that I can remember, I'm trying to remember. Roper went pro.
Mm-hmm. You had Harold Bailey, Quinn. You had
Harold Bailey's not the '80s though.
No,
because we gonna talk about the '70s. Then you talking about Harold Bailey, you might as well talk about Dexter Manley too.
Dexter, yeah.
I don't know. Did Blaine go? Did Blaine Smith go?
Yes, he did.
Blaine Smith went pro too.
Yes, he did.
Okay, Quentin went. Johnny Bailey went. I know my cousin
Sylvester.
Albafundo. I know Albafundo. Santana went.
Santana.
Sylvester
Morgan.
Sylvester Morgan went?
Yeah.
Where did he go?
Sylvester left A&M and went to Cleveland.
Went to Cleveland Browns.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know? Have you ever been to University of Colorado? Have you ever been to CU? Been to Boulder?
I've been to Boulder.
Okay. One of the things that they did back then, back when I was in school, when I went to Wyoming, they had like a ring of honor.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think this is something that Yates, to make it more advantageous for
the youngsters
to come back to Yates to see these significant players that did go on to the NFL?
That's one of the things that Monroe, I think he tried to do
mm-hmm.
with the little thing he was doing with the
Hall of Fame.
The
Hall of Fame.
But I mean, it's a good thing.
That's one thing.
But the difference with him is he didn't know the people. Hall of Fame is based on a line.
Right.
Migrating up to where you are.
Right.
But he was just picking and choosing people.
He's picking and choosing,
right.
whomever he saw fit.
Or who somebody told him about him. See, in order to do that, you have to have people on a committee that sit down and say, this is this guy's accomplishments.
Mm-hmm.
This is this young lady's accomplishment.
Mm-hmm.
Because, we had Jackie Washington who went to the Olympics.
I don't even know who that is.
Yeah, class of 1981.
Who is Jackie?
Jackie Washington.
Yeah.
All-American track star out of Jackie Yates High School.
Really?
Yeah. Ran in the Olympics.
See, these are the type of stories, everybody, that I'm trying to talk about that, is very influential here in the city of Houston, but nobody talks about these stories because we don't have any storytellers. That's why today, on the Blitz and Cocktails, I brought a storyteller to find out about Jackie Wilson.
Jackie Washington.
I never, what, female, male, what?
Female. Yeah.
What did she run?
She ran the 100. She ran the 4x4. They
Really?
set a state record. Her and Clyde Bishop were two of the fastest people in the state.
Now I do remember Clyde Bishop because
Clyde
and her
are the same.
I played with his brother
Right.
Glenn Bishop. Came through with us. But see, I didn't even know that pedigree of of athletes that came through on the track field.
Oh man!
I didn't even know. I didn't even know anything about that. My basis was just about football, basketball.
Right.
That's really about it. And during the '80s, besides Ricky Winslow and all of them, with that '82 team,
Joe Green and all.
I didn't even know anything about the basketball team until JoJo and Snap and all of them, in 2020,
yeah,
later, in the 2000s, 2009, 2010, 2009. I really didn't pay attention. About basketball until then.
Okay, so you didn't know about the Phi Slamma Jamma juniors.
I knew about the Phi Slamma Jamma, but I just knew that Rick was on that team.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about but that's right. No,
Rick,
I take it back.
Carvin.
Michael Young was on that team too.
Mm.
Michael Young was on that team, but no, I didn't know anything about Carvin Holcomb.
No, Mike Young was on that team. Mike was already at U of H.
He was already at UH.
He was at U of H on the real Phi Slamma Jamma.
But he was with Yates. He was at Yates with Rick and them, though, wasn't he?
No.
So it was before then.
Oh yeah, he finished in 1980.
Really?
Yeah.
And then that's right. He went to U of H.
Yeah. And he became a part of that Phi Slamma Jamma. And then that's when they named these youngsters because they were running the same offense that U of H was running.
What was that?
Run.
Oh, 48 minutes of hell. That's what they called it. 48 minutes of hell.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, see, what I'm gonna have to do is, because I know we're running short on time, but.
Right.
What I'm going to have to do, ladies and gentlemen, is we're going to wrap this up, right now. But what we're going to do next week, we're going to bring probably Mr. Glenn back on and some more guests, to talk about more issues regarding, Houston as well as, sports here in this area. Okay. So next time, get with us again, have your favorite cocktail and have some popcorn ready. I want to thank my guest again, Dennis Glenn.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate you coming up, partner.
No problem.
Thank you.